interview for you all the way from Europe. Fatih Birol, the head of the IEA, joining us on ET Now. Fatih Birol, thank you so much for talking to us here in India. First up, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out. I know we had some technical difficulties. We were all working from home. Thank you for your patience. I hope you, your family, your loved ones, everyone at the IEA is indeed very safe and healthy. Having said that, Mr. Fatih Birol, when you were last time in India, I interviewed you where you believe that the normal of $60 would stay, but the world has changed. Black Swan, COVID, we saw what happened with crude prices. Today, it seems as if some crucial understanding has been reached between Saudi Arabia as well as Russia, where we could actually see deep cuts. First up, I'd like to ask you that do you think that any arrangement that Saudi Arabia and Russia will reach, thanks to the pressure from the US, is going to be sustainable and is going to last long enough with the clear intent of making sure prices go up?
So, first of all, thank you very much for your good wishes. In Paris, we are since 3 weeks in confinement, working from our homes, and all of my colleagues, we are working very, very hard in these very difficult days to provide a stability to global oil markets and the global economy. Yes, there are many technical problems as we just experienced. I am since half an hour here waiting for you, but for India, I am happy to wait much more than half an hour. Now the markets are going through an unprecedented period. Oil industry has never experienced such a situation since 100 years. We have seen many shocks because of the demand falling down in the oil history of the oil. We have seen many shocks because of the supply of glut of supply, huge amount of unused oil. But we have never seen in the history of oil both of the shocks, demand shock and supply shock, coming simultaneously and at such levels. It is the reason it is a devastating situation for the global oil and gas industry, and it will affect not only the producing countries, but entire global economy. It is the reason we are very concerned. Yes, you are right. Today is an OPEC meeting taking place. But in my view, at least as important as that, tomorrow there will be an extraordinary G20 meeting convened by the Saudi Arabia at the request of the International Energy Agency to bring all major governments around the world how to find a solution to this major problem. You are talking about the 10 million barrels per day of cut. I don't know if it is going to come out or not. We will see. And even if there is a 10 million barrels per day of a cut, according to our numbers, this will not be enough to solve the problem. There will be still, this quarter, about 15 million barrels per day and additional stock building in the oil markets, which in turn would continue to put a downward pressure on the prices. Now, the question is, if the prices go down to $10 or lower, is it a good news for the consuming countries, such as India? I am not sure, because yes, the price of gasoline may be cheaper. Yes, the price of jet fuels for the planes may be cheaper, but today, almost 4 billion people around the world are in confinement. Nobody can use their cars, take the buses or planes. Consumers are not able to benefit from these low prices. Therefore, considering the shocks of the oil industry coming around the world, millions of workers, engineers losing their jobs, workers and engineers working in the oil fields, but also refineries, also in the retail fuel stations, pump stations, millions of people are going to lose their jobs, they themselves and the families they are supporting will be badly affected. So it is the reason I have requested the Prince Abdulaziz, the Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia, to convene an extraordinary G20 meeting tomorrow afternoon, and all the ministers, including the India, will be there to see what we can all together to find a solution to this problem. Because it is not only an oil industry problem, it is risking to contribute negatively to the current meltdown of the global economy. As such, it is a major problem for all of us.
Right. Mr. Birol, hi, good evening. This is Ruchi Bhatia from New Delhi. It's heartening to know that you and everybody at IEA are doing well during these times. You're right when you're saying that that tomorrow's G20 meeting will also be an important one to watch out for. Having said that, how are you looking at the massive demand loss that we are seeing across the world, with global economies announcing the shutdown on account of coronavirus? And when do you see some sort of a demand reversal happening there as well?
So the problem is huge. Why it is huge? Because when you look at the global oil consumption, 60% of the global oil consumption comes from transportation sector, from cars, from buses, from planes and others. As long as the confinement is with us, we don't know when it is going to be over, but months people are talking about, I don't see oil demand to recover sharply anytime soon. So what can we do? The reason why I asked for the G20 meeting is the following. We can have three components of at least a solution which can provide a breathing space for the global oil markets. Number one, the countries whose oil industry is run by national oil companies, such as Russia, Saudi Arabia, and others, they need to cut. In my view, from today's meeting, they have no luxury to leave this meeting without a serious agreement. But this is number one. Number two, there are some countries where the oil industry is run by private companies. And in these countries, I expect that those companies are and will be cutting their spending. Therefore, we will see some cuts in those countries, in United States, Canada, Brazil, and other countries. Number two. Number three, some importing countries, oil importing countries, can well buy oil when it is cheap and to put it in their strategic reserves and give a lifeline to demand. And it is good for their economy as well. And I should here praise government of India, because India is one of those countries where we see that India has decided to buy oil to put in their strategic reserves. It is good for three reasons. One, it will help to improve the Indian oil security. Second, it is important that when the prices go up in the future, India has already bought oil at a very low price. And three, it is important because it will help the stability of the global oil markets from the demand side. To sum up, I expect a solution based on three legs. Cut from the countries where the oil markets are run by the national oil companies, cut from the countries as a result of the capital spending of the private companies, and third, from governments like India, and there are other countries that are doing that, such as United States, such as Korea and others, buying oil for strategic reserves in order to give a lifeline to demand. So these are the three areas that I think can give us a breathing space, at least the second quarter, which is perhaps the most critical quarter period in the oil industry this year. And if we can get the industry out of this quarter, hopefully the second half of the year, we may see demand slowly but surely, in a gradual way, to rebound, and we may have a bit more balanced market. But in any case, I do not expect the oil prices, oil demand to rebound sharply anytime soon.
Mr. Birol, this is Nentara again. You know, in fact, the IEA has called this the worst oil shock in history. If I could expand on that, there are various theories that, you know, the oil and gas industry worldwide could lose 50 million jobs. You're obviously going to see scaling back of capex plans as far as the oil and gas sector at large goes. But what I found very interesting is you saying that you don't see an immediate pickup in prices and immediate recovery in prices. And you've explained that because second quarter is going to be indeed very crucial. So given the build-up, given the fact that there is a lockdown, given the fact that consumers cannot go out and buy gasoline and all of that, is this where prices will stay? $20, $25? Or do you think that despite whatever is decided today, I don't know what the G20 will decide at the extraordinary meeting, we could see more pressure simply because demand will also go down as global growth slows down?
How the prices will rebound will be depending on two things. One, the size of the decision which will come at the end of tomorrow's meeting. Production cuts, giving life drive to demand. What is the entire size of this package? This is very important. And whether or not this will be strong enough, sizable enough to convince the markets. This is number one. Number two, why I am happy to see that the G20 countries are coming together, because they are, by coming together, giving a signal to the markets, which is we are seeing this as a major threat to economy, and we are coming together, and we are going to do our best to tackle this problem. Of course, if there is a sizable reduction and such an expression of the will and intention of the G20 countries come together as a result of Friday, tomorrow afternoon, we may well see a rebound of the prices. But in order to this rebound to stay at those levels, I don't know what those levels will be, certain time we have to see that the messages and the amount of oil cut is appropriate.
Mr. Birol, even if we don't see a rebound, even if we don't see a rebound, and even if we don't see a rebound, or, you know, besides what you've seen in a knee-jerk reaction today that may be sustainable, is this the new normal? Or do you fear that it's going to go down further? You've already highlighted that even a $10 crude price is not good for India. So do you think, is that a fear that prices could in fact come down further? Or you think this is the normal, this is where they're going to stay?
If there is no agreement among the producers, a meaningful agreement, if tomorrow's G20 meeting doesn't come up with a convincing outcome, we may see prices further to go down. And what does this mean? This means, again, it is not one shouldn't think of this will affect only the major oil companies or major oil nations. It will affect everybody who is working in the supply chain of oil, workers in refineries, workers in the retail sales in the pump stations. It will affect everybody. So therefore, I believe it is in everybody's interest to bring stability to the oil markets. And many governments are taking decisions to protect their consumers. For example, again, I would like to praise Prime Minister Modi and Minister Pradhan to decide to distribute LPG cylinders around the country to provide support to poor, which is an exemplary political decision.
Mr. Birol, I understand the point that you're making about India, but to what extent can countries like India even fill up the strategic reserves? Because reports suggest that even those reserves are filling up fast. And besides that, India is also using a large part of their own fiscal expenses towards healthcare to fight COVID-19.
India, of course, cannot provide a large part of the solution. The large part of the solution should come from those countries who are the major producers. And some of those countries played an important role. A few weeks ago, that oil industry is today risking to be collapsing. And this is their responsibility. Main responsibility lies with them. Countries like India or Korea or Japan, these countries make a small contribution in terms of the strategic reserves filling. But this is not only good for the helping the global solution, but at the same time, very important for their future oil industry for the rainy days to come. When the prices go up, they have bought oil at very low prices. So therefore, India's responsibility in this problem is very small. The main responsibility is by far a few major producers who in turn played a critical role for the current station of oil industry. But let me reiterate again, as long as confinement issue is resolved, as long as the global economy started to rebound, we cannot see global oil demand at a level that we had just before the coronavirus problem, which was about 100 million barrels per day. We will see that it will take a significant amount of time that the demand will go up those levels we have seen before the coronavirus problem.
Mr. Birol, in the most optimistic scenario as well, where nations, run and private companies also agree to go ahead with the production output cut, plus countries countries like India that will look to buy oil, how will that change the inventory dynamics in your opinion?
So today, in many parts of the world, inventories, the stocks are coming to a level that they are more or less full, not much space left. It is the reason I am saying if the main producers, starting with Russia and Saudi Arabia, do not take radical measures, if today's OPEC Plus meeting doesn't come with a sufficient enough of cut, plus Friday's G20 meeting, which International Energy Agency has initiated, doesn't come up with a convincing result, we may even see, in some cases, negative prices of oil. So this is a major issue because of the significant amount of the stocks around the world are close to be completely full.
Mr. Birol, from the way it's looking, 2020 is going to be a really bad year for the economy. Some say it'll be worse than the Great Depression. Ben Bernanke, the former US Federal Reserve, says that this is, like a natural snowstorm that nobody could have seen. The IEA says it's the worst oil shock ever in global history. 50 million jobs could be lost. I think it's pretty obvious that at times like this, cash is king. there will be preservation of cash. So it's a given, right, that big oil and gas deals that were supposed to take place will be off the table. We don't know when they could come back on the table. From India's perspective, you know, it's the privatization of one of our state-owned oil companies, BPCL. I know you've applauded the government in the past about this massive decision. Reliance Industries was supposed to do that big deal with Saudi Arabia. I think it's pretty obvious that all of this is not going to go ahead right now as planned, and the question is when it can ever resume.
So let me tell you that we talk with the many companies around the world and many governments. In the last week, I had the pleasure, I should say, talking with about 25 major countries' ministers, including I had the pleasure to discuss with my good friend, Minister Pradhan, as well as the CEOs of major companies. I can tell you, even where we are now, there will be about 30% cut in the investment plans of the oil companies around the world, roughly. And this may even go deeper. What does this mean? This means at least two things. One, millions of people working in the oil industry and related industries, refineries, petrochemical, and others will lose their jobs. Number one. Number two, many of the investment plans, projects will be either canceled or they will put on the shelf to be looked after several months to come. We will see a major shakeup in the global oil and gas industry. This will affect both the producing countries and importing countries, countries who buy crude oil, countries who sell refined products. It will affect everybody. There is no exception to that.
Mr. Birol, now that we are very close to sealing that deal, of course, a lot hinges on the G20 meeting tomorrow as well. But with this, do you at all see the balance in the world kind of returning back? We are seeing some sort of a peak coming in for COVID-19 cases as well. How do you see those things shaping up?
I think we have today, when I look at the world, leave aside one moment the oil industry. When I look at the world, I see, first of all, we have a medical challenge as well. Big challenge. Second challenge, the economic challenge. And third, in my view, there is an ethical test for many government leaders, business leaders, thought leaders, what they are doing in these difficult times for the humanity. Citizens of this world will not forget who is doing what, who did what in these difficult days. Once again, I want to applaud Prime Minister Modi to be a leader in the fight against coronavirus, not only taking the right measures in India, but also helping other nations around the world. If all the leaders around the world, government leaders, take responsible decisions, I think we can come to a solution earlier rather than later. So therefore, I am, once again, I am heartened by the 20 most important economies of the world in a very short notice coming together at a minister level tomorrow to show a sign of solidarity, to come together and trying to find a solution to this very problem in the energy industry. Of course, I do not know whether it will be a successful one, but even the fact that all the governments, 20 major governments of the world, which represents 80% of the global economy, taking this seriously at the request of the International Energy Agency is a signal, which is, I think, an optimistic one. And I hope it is not only the energy sector, other sectors of the economy and beyond can take this as a good example, because what we need now internationally is solidarity, with one word, solidarity, to face this unprecedented challenge we are facing today.
And on that note, Fatih Birol, I'm going to thank you for taking the time out, for joining us for this live interview on a